to another edition of David Bryant Reports. I am David Bryant. You know, we're all attracted to stories about people who give up their lives for the sake of somebody else. For example, the stories of Abraham Lincoln, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, even some of the stories we're hearing about soldiers on the front lines in the Ukrainian war laying their lives on the line for the sake of their countrymen. Well, such a story emerged just recently in the news, didn't it? The death of Alexei Navalny, a death which was really in many ways a martyrdom. Now, Alexei Navalny was quite a leader in the nation of Russia. He was a young man who was only 47 years old and had every possibility of leading Russia into a whole new future. In fact, he led a party called Russia for the Future, and he wanted to bring back a full-fledged democratic society in that nation to resist the Putin regime. And that's essentially why he lost his life. He died in a Russian gulag up north of the Arctic Circle. Again, like I say, he was a very healthy and strong 47-year-old. And in a sense, it didn't have to happen. You could have looked at it another way and said he could have stayed where it was safe. He had 30 million people following him in social media, had his own YouTube channel. Couldn't he have led his movement from outside of Russia where it was safer? But you see, Alexei Navalny had already been poisoned twice by the Russian regime. He knew his life was in danger. He had recovered from both poisoning, and in the last time he was in a German hospital, and when he finally had fully regained his strength, he determined that in January, I guess it was, of 2021, that he was going to go back no matter what. And when people ask him, reporters ask him, well, why are you doing this? He said, because, in a sense, I never left Russia. That was his statement. I never left Russia because Russia's in my heart. These are my people. I am a part of them. I need to go back and speak the truth to them. I need to go back and lead them into a much better future. And I can't do any of that from the outside. I've got to do it from the inside. A couple of nights ago, I watched this CNN Films documentary on Navalny that won an Academy Award. It came out a couple of years ago, 2 hours of getting into the life and the mind and the heart of this young leader and realizing how totally and thoroughly dedicated he was. He knew he was going to go back and be arrested. He knew he would be put in prison, probably tortured. And then eventually, after he was arrested and tried, he was given a 30-year sentence in the end and then sent up to the cold Arctic weather inside a gulag prison. And that's where he died. And in this CNN film, they ask him, well, now, what if you go back and you do die? What is your word to your followers? He said, my word to my followers is, if they kill me, that shows you how strong we really are. And if they kill me, that shows you how threatened they really are, and that they know their doom is sure. He was so courageous that the very day he flew back to Russia in January of 2021, he released a 2-hour documentary he'd been working on for a couple of years. It's a Hollywood production style documentary in which he exposes in depth with all kinds of video and research the corruption of the Putin regime and particularly of his inner circle. And he released it the very day he returned, knowing what that would cost him, but bringing out the truth. And already over 147 million people have viewed that video. You know, a couple nights ago, as I sat and thought about all these things I've learned about him, I sat and I wept. I wept for losing such a leader, yes, but I also wept because I was seeing in him, in a fresh new way, who our Lord Jesus is. The one who said, in a sense, we're in his heart. He's got to go and rescue us. He's got to go and bring us into a new future. And he can't do it from the outside. He has to do it from the inside. Even though he knew it was going to cost him his life, he came anyway. It gave me a whole new appreciation of what Paul says, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, when he says, he who was rich became poor for our sakes, that we through his poverty might be made rich. And the future of the Russian people are because this one young man was willing to become utterly poor, stripped down to death itself. Our Lord Jesus, in a far grander way, left all the riches that were his as the Son of God, and he came into this world and he poured out his life even unto death so that we might be made rich because of what he has done for us. You know, here at ChristNow, we talk about the fourfold revolution of Jesus: his incarnation, crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension. We say those four have to work together. You take any one of those away and the revolution falls apart. You know, Navalny helps me to see that in a new way, what it means for Jesus to have said, I've got to go and be among them. I've got to be an insider, his incarnation. I know I'm going to die. He knew that from all the ages, that it was going to cost him his life, the crucifixion. He rose from the dead. Navalny hasn't risen from the dead, but he's raised up a movement of people with new courage to stand up for what the future of Russia ought to be, almost like a resurrection. And then Jesus ascended. Well, Navalny didn't ascend exactly, but his memory of his courage is going to inspire future generations almost as if he was already still alive and active. Well, even more in our Lord Jesus, we are a part of his fourfold revolution. We have been raised from death with him. We have been ascended, and we reign with him. That's what the scriptures tell us. So as I read about Navalny, it gave me a renewed commitment to work not for the future of Russia or even for the future of America particularly, but for the future of the cause of Christ in our nation. What we at ChristNow call an American Christ awakening. And I sort of resolve that I'm going to live for that in a whole new way. I'm going to pay whatever price it takes. Navalny said to his leaders his followers right before he went back, he said, whatever happens to me, never give up. I don't want to give up. I want to see the church in this nation reconverted back to Christ for all that he is. I want to see a Christ awakening spread from shore to shore. I want to see it transform the landscape of this entire nation and be a witness for Jesus before the whole world. Don't you? Won't you join us? Well, that's my report for today. Join me next time as we continue to look at the world around us through the spectacular supremacy of God's Son. I'll see you then.